Welcome to the wonderful world of Australian fossils. I'm going to save you from rummaging through written notes, so listen up. What's our dot point? Gather information from secondary sources to describe some Australian fossils, where these fossils were found, and use available evidence to explain how they contribute to the development of understanding about the evolution of species in Australia. Now let me feed you some context. Australia is a goldmine when it comes to fossils of extinct megafauna. We have uncovered so many fossils of numerous organisms, we couldn't possibly cover all the different types, so here are 5 major types of Australian fossils and everything the dot point tells us to know about them. Yay! This is the Megalopgulia. Let me clarify something. These creatures were last alive 50,000 years ago during the Pleistocene era. The modern equivalent is the extant echidna, Australia's spiky sweetheart. Description: Up next, the Obdurodon. This beaut lived 10 to 23 million years ago during the Miocene era. It's pretty obvious what its modern equivalent is: Australia's one and only electric-billed egg-laying mammal, the platypus. Description: Who's that? I hear you ask shyly, batting your eyelashes. Well, it's no other than the Diprotodon. These fluffy bad boys are the ancestors of our modern koalas and wombats. More wombats than koalas, but we don't believe in exclusion. Description: The fourth of the 5 fossils is the Procoptodon. Like the Megalopgulia, these guys lived during the Pleistocene era. Its modern equivalent is the banded hair wallaby. Description: The last of the fossils is the Dromornis. This one was last alive 6 to 8 million years ago during the late Miocene era. They don't have a clear equivalent, but closest would be waterfowls, emus, and cassowaries. Description: Now let's link all of this to evolution. What is evolution? The process in which different living organisms develop over time through the breeding of the most fit within the species. In simple terms, the development of a species to better survive. To talk about the idea of evolution with these fossils, we must discuss the differences between the fossils and its equivalent extant species. Let's talk about the differences, shall we? The Megalopgulia. The description of the extinct echidna indicates that the body was especially suited to locate sources of food most available during the Pleistocene era. Unlike the Megalopgulia, modern echidna, depending on type, feed on both insects and worms. Another difference between the Megalopgulia and modern echidna is the size. Modern echidna are much smaller. Other than this, features both physical and neurological have remained relatively constant. The Obdurodon. The description of the extinct platypus indicates a minor difference in build. Modern platypus are smaller, but a major difference being that concerning teeth. Modern platypus do not have teeth, whereas the Obdurodon platypus do. Because they had teeth, it can be concluded that they were able to feed on harder and larger food sources that were more likely readily available during the time period they existed in. The Diprotodon. The description of the extinct wombat indicates that the key difference is that regarding the size. Unlike the modern wombat, the Diprotodon was almost the size of a hippopotamus and had pillar-like limbs. The modern wombat grows up to 1 meter in length and 35 kilograms in weight, and have legs more stubby than pillar-like. Another difference regards teeth. Changes, such as a reduction in incisors, 2 upper incisors instead of 3, indicates that the Diprotodon fed on tougher substances than the modern wombat. The Procoptodon. The description of the fossil indicates that it is most likely related to the extant animal, the banded hair wallaby. The differences include that regarding size and structure. The banded hair wallaby is significantly smaller in size, around 80 centimeters in length and 1.7 kilograms in weight, and do not possess a single toe, long limbs, or hook-like claws. Another difference is that regarding diet. Due to the Procoptodon's complex set of teeth, it can be deduced that they browse through vegetation rather than simply grazing. They fed on hard leaves and stems. The banded hair wallaby feeds on small vegetation and flowering plants. Despite these differences, a correlation can be made in terms of similar features, however this is debated. The concept of evolution in terms of these four fossils are relatively the same, as you can probably tell. I shall formally word it to you for your understanding. The available evidence of the fossils contribute to the development of our understanding about the evolution of species in Australia by highlighting the key differences and hence allowing us to understand the changes the extinct organisms underwent in order to survive. In the case of the mentioned fossils, they all have evolved by reducing in size and adapting physically to different food sources, hence the extant equivalence. As for the Dromaeosaurus, the description of the fossil indicates that it is most likely related to modern waterfowls. It is also theorized that they are related to the extant large flightless birds, cassowaries, and emus. Key differences between the fossil and extant birds is that the Dromaeosaurus are very large and have an unclear diet. Although initially theorized to feed on fruits and pods, it is now proposed they ate meat. Despite there being similarities between the birds mentioned and the fossil, there are no distinct similarities pointing out a clear equivalence. This is the same paragraph, except the last part is changed to this. In the case of the Dromaeosaurus, it is evident that due to a lack of sufficient similarities between the fossil and the extant organism, the subtropical open woodland occupied by the Dromaeosaurus supported life quite different to that of modern times. I do apologize for this lengthy video, but we did have to cover a lengthy dot point. I suggest taking all of this information in, pause the video when you want, or where you want. Thank you for watching the video. Enjoy studying.